Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Viva Broadcasts. In this episode, directors Buddy Deshler and myself, Dakota Corbliss, discuss pursuing a career in the Navy music program with Commander Mark Corbliss, commanding officer at the Naval School of Music in Norfolk, Virginia, and chief musician Jason Ayoub, principal horn of the United States Navy Band located in Washington, D.C. If you've ever thought about joining the military as a musician, there are a ton of useful tips about the audition and enlistment process, as well as the numerous benefits included with being a sailor in the United States Navy. Today is episode 2 of the Viva Broadcasts. This morning we have chief musician Jason Ayoub and Commander Mark Corbliss here with us to talk about a career as a Navy musician. Jason Ayoub has been in the Navy Band for, I think it is 16 years now.
Yeah,
14,
coming up.
16? 16?
14,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, sorry, math is hard. And he is currently in the United States Navy Band in D.C., and then Commander Mark Corbliss has been in the United States Navy for, I believe, 30 years now. And he is the CO, the commanding officer at the United States Naval School of Music based at Little Creek in Norfolk, Virginia. So welcome to you both. We're happy to have you here this morning. We just want to kind of start off by saying that, a military career is definitely one of the most secure options, I would say, today for a performing musician. And we really want to have both of your inputs here. Jason has gotten into the Navy music program via the Premier Band in D.C., which is a little bit different than if you join in the fleet bands. So we're going to start with Jason. Jason, could you talk a little bit about how your experience coming out of school and auditioning for orchestras and that sort of thing kind of prepared you for the process for getting into the DC band?
Sure, absolutely. It's great to be here with you guys. Thanks again for having me. So I was at the University of North Texas. I joined the Dallas Brass. I've been playing with them, but even throughout all that time in the Dallas Brass, everybody, I was still taking auditions. I was still working on all my excerpts and everything. Like you said, Dakota, everything that I did at North Texas with my teacher and all those ensembles, particularly actually all the recordings I did with Eugene Corporon and the North Texas Wind Symphony, those things really prepared me to come and take any audition, and particularly a military band audition. So I came out of Dallas Brass, and this is a funny story, I wasn't even going to take the Navy band audition. I had a buddy we were living in Baltimore at the time. My wife was at Peabody doing her master's, and he writes me, says, "Hey, I'm coming up to DC to take this Navy band audition. Can I come and stay with you?" And I was like, "Well, sure." I told my wife, she's like, "You need to take that audition." I was like, "No, I'm not going to take that audition." And she said, "You're going to take that audition." So I took the audition.
She's a boss.
And she is a boss. And much like every orchestral audition I'd been to previous to that, you're in a warm-up room. The list was essentially 95% orchestral excerpts with maybe a few, at that time, very standard band excerpts, American Overture, Children's March, those kind of things. So it was stuff I had either played in college or worked on. And then I came in, and as it is today in our auditions, it was nationally advertised and everything was behind a screen. There was not one time even where I saw the committee. Like, every round was behind the screen. So, which is still what we do today. So it was exactly like an orchestral audition. And there was about 30 people there that day. And the one thing, though, we were not in the current building we were in. So it was about December-ish, November, December-ish. It was very cold, and we were in a little double-wide trailer as our warm-up area. And then we would go into this, building to do the audition. So it was kind of funny going and, through the cold and then a little bit of snow,
right,
to get to the place. But yeah, essentially everything that I teach my kids at Towson, everything that I've learned, it all prepared me for that. But particularly, again, I come back to the recording. Eugene Corporon was so vital in my development and just the standard that we had to have every recording session. I mean, that's the kind as I walked into auditions, that's where I had, like, can I do this in one take kind of thing? Mm-hmm. Can I nail it as I need to nail it every time? So
right, cool. That's great for people that are preparing, for an orchestral audition, to know that, like, this audition route is definitely an opportunity for them to pursue. Can you talk a little bit about how it might differ because you're joining the military? You are a sailor. Some of the stuff that happens after the fact, once you pass you get qualified musically for the DC band?
Yes. So at the audition, the committee says, yes, you are number one, number two musically qualified person. And then those candidates then go and have an interview with the senior leadership and the captain. And they come back and say, yeah, this is the person that we want to hire. So then you head down to your local Navy recruiter, and that's where you start the process of actually getting into the Navy. So I sat down with my recruiter, we went through all my stuff, and then you go to MEPS, which is the medical entrance processing station, and you go there and you again are medically diagnosed and mentally that, hey, you can join the Navy. You take a test, you do all these things, and you take a full physical. They check everybody your medical background, and then they say, yeah, you can go to the Navy. So then I had a date. Let's see, I won the job in April-ish, and so I guess it wasn't very cold in April. It seemed like it was colder. Anyways, and then I had a date for like 6 months later. That was the earliest the recruiter said they could get me in. But thankfully, my recruiter worked, and I got in about 5 weeks later. And so then I shipped off and got into. I had a summer commitment. I got into boot camp on November 28th of 2005.
Ooh, Chicago in November. That sounds.
Yes, it was. It was crazy. We got there immediately, snowed, and we were all shoveling outside. And then I stayed there through Christmas, and then I reported to the band February 1st. So go ahead.
Cool. Is there a kind of like bedding in process when you get to DC? How does that work?
Sure. So as Commander Corbliss will talk about with the fleet guys, with us in the premier bands, we go from boot camp and then we go straight to the band. The other enlisted musicians will go to the A school down where your dad is. But we go straight to the band. We go in, we check in, and we start a whole check-in process where we meet essentially every person. It feels like in the band. We listen to all the ensembles. There's 6 different units within the Navy band: our rock band, our country band, the chorus, the big band, and then of course the concert ceremonial band. We go out, we start observing immediately funerals so we can get on those, because that's our number one mission priority, is to support Arlington National Cemetery. So we're out there doing that immediately, and then you're put on the rotation and you start, they give you a little time to try and get your chops back, because obviously you've been off your instrument for about 8 to 12 weeks, depending. So then you get your chops back, and then you're put on stage and in the rotation. 1 week on stage, 1 week out doing ceremonies for the band.
Cool. Can you talk a little bit about what a typical day as a DC musician is like? I think there's a lot of similarities between the DC musicians and the fleet musicians in terms of, gigs happening, day in and day out, so on and so forth. But, like if there's a gig in DC that you guys are doing, say you're doing one of the performances down at Dakota, downtown DC, what's the process that day in? Do you guys still go into the office? Like that sort of stuff, or is the travel counted? And maybe talk about some of your other responsibilities other than just being the principal horn player of the DC band. Sure,
absolutely. And the answer is always there really isn't a typical day in the U.S. Navy band. That's our line, but it's truly true. And I usually get up around, because I live a little bit far away. I get up at 4 a.m. I'm into work by 6, and I'm doing, like you said, those other duties. I work for the Defense Travel Department, so if we've got guys who are about to travel, I'm doing their orders, I'm approving those, looking things over. For a long time, I was the stage crew manager, so I was making sure everything for whatever, like you said, for whatever concert's coming up, do we have all the gear we need? Do we have all the trucks that we need to get that gear? Who's going to be doing that this week? So managing, organizing, all of that. I also, right now, I'm on the urinalysis team, so if we have a surprise test that day, I get to observe those folks who are doing that. So those are some of the exciting other duties that we do in the band. But yeah, and then we, of course, every day we're having rehearsal, except most of the times usually not on a concert day. But there are definitely days as a member of the brass quintet where I'll come in on a concert day, maybe play a ceremony in the morning or a change of command somewhere, and then I'll have to play a show that night. Mm-hmm. I've definitely also come in, done a morning ceremony, had rehearsal, and then stuck around in DC, and then had a whole brass quintet recital or another ceremony in the evening. So every day is different. The folks who are on ceremonies each week, they're at Arlington, but they also might have a change of command sometime in the middle of the week. They might have a Pentagon arrival early in the morning. It's a constant flux of jobs coming in, and where people need to be is very different. But yeah, even still on a concert day, senior leadership, those guys are in and they're doing their jobs, and they're working essentially nearly a full-time day, and then they'll go play the concert that evening.
Gotcha. Cool.
Some people have urinalysis duty. Some people play trumpet for a living, so it's not a perfect life for anyone involved. But
well, they don't trust anybody, just anybody with that. So there's not a lot of trumpet players. No.
Who invited this guy?
I was about to say, I was like, that was a beautiful introduction of our guests, but it's like, Dakota, you mentioned nothing about me.
Oh, sorry. They all know you.
So I would like to ask
me?
Jason, if I could ask Jason a question. So it used to be that the ceremonial band was a separate and kind of autonomous unit, but could you just briefly go over exactly how it works now with the rotation of the ceremonial band and the concert band?
Sure, absolutely. That's a great question. So in the band itself, we have, much like some smaller orchestras will have a core orchestra, we have a core group of stage personnel, usually principal players and maybe an assistant or so, depending on the section. And those core players are on stage every week in and out playing the concerts. But then we have the bigger, larger mass of the concert ceremonial unit is either, like I said, on stage or rotating out in Arlington. So one week you'll be on that stage doing that concert, and then the next week you'll be assigned to whatever ceremonies that you need to be. But there are also times within the band where everybody goes on ceremonial rotation, and we're all playing funerals. We're all playing the changes of the command. So for the most part, most of the concert ceremony unit is rotating week in, week out. So you get the opportunity to play a concert, but you also have the great opportunity to go out and serve in the ceremonial aspects that are needed for whatever the band is, whatever jobs have come in for the band. But like your dad said, it used to be ceremonial band, all they did was ceremonies, day in, day out. And the concert band was just a group of people who just prepared concerts. I love the rotating because it kind of changes things up. And I know a lot of guys who really enjoy that aspect of the band.
Gotcha. Can you talk a little bit about when, this is also something the fleet bands do now more and more, going out on tour, and what that's like? It's not something that a lot of professional orchestras get the opportunity to do. Maybe they'll be within an hour or two of where home base is. But you guys go, sometimes all the way across the country to perform. And can you talk a little bit about what that experience is like? Obviously you spent a lot of time touring with Dallas Brass. Can maybe compare the similarities and that sort of thing?
Sure. So with Dallas Brass, it was a good intro into exactly kind of how we do tour on the Navy band. In the Navy band, we take usually about a four or 5 week tour every year, and to a different region. So the United States is broken up into 5 regions, and actually each of the premier bands is constantly rotating each of those regions. So this last year we were in the Southeast, and we had gone from DC down to Florida, and we were on our way back up. We had to actually cut our tour a little short due to COVID. But we were on our way heading back home. It's a daily thing. You're in a bus most of the time. You're riding maybe 3 to 5 hours depending on the drives. Each day you get to the hotel, you maybe have a couple of hours to yourself, and then you're right off onto the concert site. You play the concert, you load up the gear, go back to the hotel, unwind, get up the next morning, do it all again. And so you're doing that straight for, like I said, about four weeks. And that's exactly what I did in the Dallas Brass. So, we would get up, we'd play the show, we'd go to bed, get up, do some clinics, go play a show, get up, it was in and out. What I love about tour, though, it is one of my favorite times of the year, because we're going out and we're bringing that Navy message to people who would not otherwise see the Navy. If you're in the middle of Iowa, they don't see a lot of, Navy presence there in the middle of North Dakota or Nebraska. So it's fun to be able to come to play for those people, let them know what their Navy's doing, but also to honor the veterans, which are everywhere, which is super fantastic. We meet so many people. It seems like at least 1 or 2 concerts a year on tour, we find an amazing World War II vet, and they might be some of the last ones, alive at this point or in their area at least. So it's super amazing to be able to meet those people, to honor them, to bring the Navy message out to, again, those places that would not otherwise have that message brought to them. And it's a great recruiting tool. I mean, like you see this amazing band, you hear them play, and you're like, wow, I can actually do that as a job in the Navy. sign me up kind of thing. And so it's a great tool in that regard too.
Yeah, I had a couple of things that I've been thinking about since you've said it. But before I say those things, I will say that if you are tuning in and watching us, because we do have a number of viewers tuning in, if you have questions that you would like to ask, just go ahead and type it in the comments on the Fredericksburg Brass Facebook page. I will be checking it out and moderating that. So if you have questions for our guests, please type them below. It's funny when you talked about, before you were mentioning this is how I'm taking the audition story, you were just talking about Dallas Brass, and you said, oh, this is a crazy story. And I was just like, are we going to do Dallas Brass stories right now? But then I was like, oh, I bet you do. I bet you do. And,
I've got fun Dallas Brass stories, yes.
And for everybody that is wondering about all of these motions, if you don't know, that is the group that I'm currently playing in and touring in. So just a few years apart in our tour days and our travel days. But something that really stuck out to me, Jason, was when you were talking about your, I guess, like the privilege of playing on all those North Texas recordings. And not only is that you getting to work on like the recording aspect and like the one take wonder idea, but you also had the opportunity to play a lot of this repertoire that might be in the audition. So rather than just learning the notes of the excerpts, maybe like studying, just standalone recordings of someone playing that excerpt, like you have the whole piece as a reference and being very familiar with what the clarinets are doing at the same time, when you join the trombones in certain aspects too. So like that, I'm sure had a lot to do with the overall knowledge and understanding.
And I still remember, in the sight reading, definitely that was the case. Like they'd put something in front of me, I was like, yep, I've recorded that. Yep, I've recorded that. Like you're literally, and it was just, and you'd be thrown right back into that recording session, and then all those times, and you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do here. And that is, you're right, that is the benefit of being able to play with great ensembles all the time and be able to experience, like you said, not just a standalone, oh, I've learned my excerpt, but how do I really fit in? How am I really supposed to play, this excerpt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Awesome. Well, I think this might be a good time to jump over and talk a little bit about the other entry system into the Navy music program. So like I mentioned before, we have Commander Mark Corbliss, who's also my father, if you haven't put two and two together yet. He is at the School of Music, which Jason referenced before as A School. And so, Dad, if you could talk a little bit about the process of somebody that, just graduated with a music degree, or depending on it could be a master's degree, doctorate degree, you could be a really talented person out of high school, depending on what's going on, and talk about what the process is like that to become a sailor as an MU, because while it's similar to becoming a sailor in the Navy program, there's a couple extra steps for a musician to do beforehand. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind going back to Jason's part about auditioning at the Navy Band. And one of the things when I was stationed up there as the XO was very impressive to me, and that is the commitment of an entire section to each audition. So auditions could last till 7, 8, 9 at night, whatever, and the whole section will be there. And what always struck me about the auditions was not only the commitment to everybody to stay and listen to everything, that everybody played, but the integrity of the system in that once you make the final round, you have to play with the rest of the section. You have to play with part of the section, so see how you blend and balance with the section. And so after you play with those people, they are no longer voting members. And I mean, the committee definitely makes the decision, but once they see your face, they leave and say nothing, which has always been, it's so incredibly blind as auditions go. And again, I was always impressed with the fact that pretty much every member of the section hangs out. And if it's trumpets or clarinets, damn, that is a long day. I mean, it is. So the other thing that hasn't been mentioned about the premier band is that once you enter a premier band, you are promoted to the rank of first class petty officer. And that is a big milestone for a fleet musician, because when you make first class petty officer, you now have a guaranteed retirement, and you have 22 years of employment if you so choose, and you behave yourself. So it is an amazing thing. So when you join the Navy band, if you so choose, you are employed with benefits. If the Navy band in DC, you are employed with benefits for 22 years. And that is a fairly awesome thing. And it doesn't stop you from doing gigs on the outside either, which is the same with the fleet. So with the fleet, you come in as probably, if you're lucky, you will enter the system as an E3. If you have college and things like that, you will go to boot camp, and so do the DC Navy guys. They go to boot camp. Jason and I have not been at boot camp for a little while. I can tell you that I went to see boot camp before I came here as the CO, and it is actually amazing. I feel like a musician that comes in and goes to Navy boot camp will have a great appreciation for what sailors on ships go through. Because I can tell you, even as a musician, when you finish boot camp, you are going to know how to put out a fire on a ship. You are going to know how to secure a bulkhead. And I'm telling you may think, well, I'm a musician. Well, let me just say, it is so much better than when Jason and I went through, man. I mean, it was all we could do to stay awake in some of the classes. Guys, it is so real. Yeah. And, these guys are doing amazing drills. And in the end, they do a final night on a Hollywood set, literally. Like, it is like Universal Studios. And there is actual fire on there that you have to put it out. You open a door, there's a fire. You and your team have to put the fire out. There it is, and there's a damaged ship. It's sinking. You have to get somebody through there. It is astounding. You are challenged with all these real-life ship situations. And I got to say, I was so thoroughly impressed. So you get through boot camp now, some basic damage control systems of a sailor. So the way you get into this system is you will go to an audition. And we've been doing a lot of cattle call auditions lately, which have been very effective for us because we are a small program, and we can be pretty selective. So our basic premise is, if you want a gig, come to the audition. And sometimes 25, 30, 35 will show up. We need 2. And that's how it goes in the fleet these days. I can tell you that the very latest information I have is, right now, we are looking for every brass instrument except for tuba. But don't be discouraged, because we'll be looking for a tuba sooner or later. And so that's not a big deal. So you do the audition and you get a guaranteed contract. You have passed, you are qualified to be a musician in the Navy. And that is what you take to your recruiter, just like Jason did. And you have this in your hand that says, I'm going to be a musician in the United States Navy. And then you do everything a sailor does. You go to MEPS, you do the thing, you take your physical, and they screen you. And then when you're done boot camp, exactly as a DC person would do, instead of going to your band, you're going to come to the School of Music, where, depending on your skill set and your adaptability, you could get through here in 3 months. It's a 6-month course, but we accelerate people out all the time.
Walking into a room that's on fire, that sounds like really good training if you want to start your own brass festival.
Yes.
Because we sounds like our earlier years.
Oh no! I know, it's good. It's really great that you guys really hit your stride right when the pandemic. We're really getting into a groove. Awesome. So then you come here and you get through the school, and then we send you out to one of 9 bands out in the fleet.
Can you talk a little bit about where some of those locations are? Because obviously, one of the perks of being in the fleet is that you can get stationed somewhere that's not in the country.
Oh yeah, it's very cool. There's if you count the Great Lakes as a water body, then Great Lakes is the only place that is not basically up against an ocean. So there's a band up there in Great Lakes, which is Illinois. And then we have on the East Coast, we have up in the Northeast is the band at Newport, Rhode Island. And in the middle of the East Coast is the band at Fleet Forces, which is Norfolk, Virginia, right here. And then down at the South, we have the Navy Band Southeast, which is in Jacksonville, Florida. On the West Coast, we have Navy Band Southwest, which is in San Diego, which is a pretty okay place. I was stationed there 3 times. And then Navy Band Northwest up in Seattle. And then we have Hawaii, which is really tough duty, if you can take it. So we have a Pacific Fleet band in Hawaii. They are a very busy band. They float with the fleet, and they do Pacific Partnership. And, yeah, it's a great band, tip of the spear. And then overseas, you keep going to the east and to the west, to the east, to the west, but it is far east. The band at Yokosuka, Japan is the 7th Fleet Band. They float a lot as well. They see a lot of the world over there. And then the band in Italy is the Naval band. It's in Naples, Italy. And so those are the bands you could be stationed at. And they're all near the ocean, which is great. It was actually one of my deciding factors. I auditioned for the Army band as well, and I thought, ocean. So.
So when you're coming out of A school, do you get to pick where you go, or is there a preference level or that sort of thing?
You totally can ask, but we are so small, and we have a very efficient hiring system and a training pipeline that says we back it up to when I'm going to need a trombone player in Italy here at this date. So I'm going to back up 6 months, and I'm letting this guy ship so I can send him to Italy. Now, it's not always like that. There are a lot of different factors. Somebody doesn't screen for overseas. Somebody doesn't make it through boot camp. Many things can happen to change your life. And then after your initial assignment, you get a dream sheet, and that's 1306, and you basically list your top 3. And we try, but needs of the Navy, our bands are not large. We need a balanced ensemble. So in some cases, most cases you get what you want, but in some cases it's like we gotta have you here. And I always encourage young people to embrace that, man, because in no way in your life as a musician are you going to pull up chocks and say, I think I'll go try my hand and live in Hawaii. You won't. The only way you're going to do that is in the Navy, and that's the only way you could afford it. And let me just say, living in Hawaii is pretty okay, because we were stationed there on my second duty station, and it was all right. So, yeah, that's what happens after A school, and we try our best to get you out there as quickly as possible. And the talent of the musicians coming through here is kind of ridiculous. And so it usually doesn't take them very long to get through the school.
Yeah, maybe something that either of you can talk about. You mentioned that this was your second station. So some of the times you are transferring to different bands. So just maybe you could talk about how that works, how often that happens, things like that.
Oh, yeah, good question. So Jason knows nothing about this, so we won't refer to him.
So we'll just mute Jason.
He doesn't know. He's living the life of Riley. Anyway, so when us Salty Fleet guys transfer, basically it's all kind of taken care of cost-wise. Usually happens around every 3 years. Sometimes you get short towards. Sometimes you want to stay there. A lot of guys want to stay in Italy, so they ask to stay. And there's some definitely considerations, and the temperature of the Navy at the time. Do we want to stay? And so you can extend, or you can extend stateside as well, if it all works. If we still need you to stay, if the band is going to do well because you stay, then we let you stay. So you have a bit of control. The Navy is really good about transfers. So say you got a kid that's going to be a senior in high school, right before you transfer. And so they'll take that into consideration. They really consider that stuff. So I'd have to say that it's not painless, but basically all your stuff's packed up for you. It all gets shipped to where you're going. Your travel is paid for. You have allowances for when you get there, and you're waiting for your new house. And the Navy takes very good care of its people in that sense. It's a pretty good deal.
Awesome. So can we back it up a little bit back to the audition process? So
Sure.
when we have these cattle call auditions that you mentioned before, do they rotate around? Are they in? I know a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for? I know a lot of the ops stuff happens in Millington. Is that where the auditions are? Or do they kind of rotate around the country?
Well, I got some really good information on that in particular, and I hope it's encouraging to some of you guys out there listening. Yeah, a lot of them happen in Millington, Tennessee, which is Memphis, for those of you out there who aren't really familiar with the birthplace of Justin Timberlake. So we do a lot of them in Memphis, but basically they've done it in Boston, San Antonio, Athens, Georgia, and what have you, just to get out there. And so, and of course, right now is a weird time, right? So we're not doing cattle calls, right? You don't do that. So we're working that out. But I did just learn, and you will get screened pretty thoroughly these days before you're invited to come to an audition, as you would in Washington. I can tell you that the polarity between Washington and the fleet is just getting closer and closer every year, because the people we're hiring are ridiculous. So what I did learn was that if buying a plane ticket to Millington is a huge problem for you, that you can contact a local band or the closest band and try to set up an appointment. Now, they will screen you thoroughly and see if it's worth your while. But rather than flying, the cattle call is definitely the way to go. Rather than flying all the way to Millington or someplace like that, or hopefully they're in your neighborhood, you can set an audition on a case by case of an appointment only with the band. And I will say that the one of the things that's like right out there is that we need rhythm players more than anything. So we'll pretty much set up a one-on-one for just about any rhythm player these days, because they're so scarce. But I will say also that I just spoke to somebody about a rhythm player the other day. The guy's been doing cruise ships for years, professional, salty dude. He's out there now. He's working for Amazon because cruise ships, and he is ready to go. I cannot emphasize enough that I tell my basic students all the time, boy, did you pick a good time to join. I mean, it is a great gig. I joined to have some hospital coverage for having babies, because I was a teacher before, and we have 6. So mission accomplished. And then somehow I blinked, and then 30 years went by. But yeah, so the audition is kind of, and we're open now. I mean, we're kind of working it out for the Zoom audition or this audition or that audition. And it's gonna come out pretty soon. So if you want to know about auditions, there it is. Follow us on Facebook, Fleet Band Activities. They don't have any audition announcements up right now because we're still figuring that out. But get like that page, and you will know everything there is to know about auditions coming up and what the average salary is and whatnot.
So I know with the DC band, there's usually an excerpt list and stuff like that. What should someone bring if they're auditioning for a fleet band?
Oh, good question. So I will refer to the rhythm section again, the rhythm section guys. So when an audition is announced, as with any audition, we will present the materials that you will need to prepare. Perfect. So there will be a repertoire list put up. They say we need trumpets, okay? And so we'll announce the trumpet audition, and then we'll put in a link that says, here's the material that you need for the audition, and be prepared to do it. We're really looking at a couple of pretty interesting ways to do things. Via Zoom, but with a good audio recording for later. You can see them, because seeing somebody do the audition there's just a lot more integrity there, right? Yeah. You got to see them, right? It can't be an incredible recording of Buddy Deshler doing those excerpts. It has to be you. So we're working that out. But so the materials go up when the audition announcement goes up. But back to the rhythm players, those materials are up all the time. So they're the only exception.
I just Venmo'd you for that compliment, by the way. Thanks.
Oh, that's good. All right.
Not much. It's not much, but it's
$17 per.
So you talk a lot about the rhythm players, and like obviously we're a brass festival, but I know that you entered as a French horn player, Dad, in the fleet bands, but you also spent a lot of times with the rock band. Can you talk about a little bit about how you can cross over? I know this is a little less common in the DC band because a lot of those guys are specialized on their axes.
It never happens.
So
they sing a sea chanty once in a while, but that's it.
But can you talk about how you cross over and like some of the opportunities, if you really like playing guitar or something like that, how you can sit in with the rock band every once in a while?
Okay, that's a good question as well. And this is something I want to preface with the danger, Will Robinson. If you're coming to audition for the Navy band, we only want you to play one thing. If you come and tell us you can play other things, that is really great information. But if you show up for a French horn audition, we want you to play the French horn really well. All that other stuff happens after you come into the band. And I will tell you that in my checkout briefs with basic students who are young and energetic and they got a lot of fire in them, I tell them not to give the secrets away. Oh, I also play guitar. No, we work on our trumpet. We play our trumpet for a while. And then when the need arises where something comes up where they really need a guitar, you could say, yes, I can probably play the guitar for you. Because you want to focus on your instrument, your primary NEC. That's the Navy enlisted classification that says you are a flautist, you are a trumpet player. And so it was the needs of the Navy thing. It was this isn't working. The Navy had this terrible habit of putting together large horn bands like Tower of Power, and it wasn't relevant anymore. And so the year before I took over the rock band, it was an 11-person band, and I had 5 people in my band, including me, who was supposed to be the lead vocalist, which was kind of funny. And I played trumpet occasionally as well. But I mean, that's what I had, and it worked. We made it work. But yeah, vocally, I have a lot of brass players that are great vocalists that'll stand up in front of the band like total bosses, and I love it. But it doesn't mean you don't have to kick butt on your primary instrument. We need you to do that first. But there are definitely opportunities, and I always encourage the young ones not to give away the farm right away. Just show up and be a good French horn player or whatever you are. But I had a blast. It was probably the best year in my Navy career. I had a great time. I mean, next to being XO Navy band, but but yeah, as far as like stress, yeah, it was very stressful. It was not my bag, baby. But it was really fun, and I mean, I got to really stretch out, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, at the Brass Institutes of Virginia, whether it's Tidewater Brass or Fredericksburg Brass, we do have participants that are in high school as well as all the way up through graduate students. And what I want to ask and talk about is, in this time that they have developing their skills as musicians and brass players, rather than just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, and in this case, waiting for a tuba audition to come up or a horn audition, and it's like, well, you know what? I'm just going to start practicing symphonic metamorphosis just in case it ever comes up in an audition. So what are some things that young brass players or people interested in a career in the Navy can be doing just progressively throughout their days to better prepare them and enhance them for an audition? Because not everybody gets the opportunity to play for the North Texas Wind Symphony recordings, those famous recordings and things like that. But I guess another question, another way of saying it is, what are the really important things to bring to an audition?
Well, I would say that was a good question, but I already complimented you once, so okay question. I mean, that was pretty good. Can you guys still see me? Because I haven't been moving. The lights went out.
Yeah, you're good.
No, this is dumb. So, buddy, that was a fairly relevant and pretty okay question. So
I'll take it.
Listen, here's the deal. If you're young and you are not taking private lessons with a competent instructor, then start there. I mean, you have to have somebody else listening to you play and watching your face and seeing how to do it better. You've taken lessons with the Fred Brass, Tidewater Brass guys, and that was like a week-long thing and everything, but you got to find a teacher and take privately, because those 12 songs that you learned in marching band and some of the concert material, it's not going to make it. You really have to have, and a broad repertoire, because just like Jason said, man, if you get a broad repertoire, none of that sight reading is going to scare you. It's going to be like, I've done this before. So that's awesome. But I would say that if you really wanted to get to the most basic starting point of how to prepare, it's your tone. You have to work on your tone, and it is painful, and it is long tones, and it is this. But if you don't have a good sound, then immediately you're going to stop an audition early, right? You can be technical as hell with zero soul, but give me the sound. I need the full sound of a trumpet or a horn or a bone, and then start from there. But if you don't have a private instructor, you don't have much chance. Especially on the Navy side of the house. There are definitely other military music programs, and I would recommend them all. They're all good jobs. But on our side, you gotta get ready like a college student would be getting ready. I have actually seen 2 high school graduates that basically we hired 2 people that only had a high school diploma come through here, and they were pretty damn outstanding. But they are by far the exception to the rule. They were just outstanding. One was a vocalist and one was a percussionist, and they just had the right circumstances. And
I bet they were taking lessons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. One of them actually lived with the Master Chief from the Naval Academy Band. So he had a little bit of influence there. And I don't know where the other girl, but she was great because she had a lot of raw talent, and she was not. What's great about young people is they don't know what they don't know, and they're kind of open to taking advice. And boy, did she take it! I mean, she just developed. She was a great talent when she got here, but she just got better because she didn't have any highfalutin notions of how good she already was, which was really cool. But I can tell you, with brass, I want your sound. I want to hear your sound. It's got to be good. I want to hear it, clearly through the band. But yeah, again, pretty good question, buddy.
Well, let me add to that, because like you said, buddy, not everyone can record with North Texas, but we do have these handy dandy devices these days that you can record on, and I am constantly on my students about recording themselves. And I will say, back in the day when I had my little mini disc player, that's what I was doing more as I would get closer to any audition. I was recording myself and listening back way more than I was practicing at that point. So it's what piece am I working on? What excerpt am I working on? And is that getting to the level that I need to? Well, how do I know? Because the phone doesn't lie. As my teachers say, the tape doesn't lie. And it is the cruelest of teachers sometimes, right? So it shows where your fundamentals are lacking. Is my time lacking? Is my intonation lacking? Is my sound lacking? These phones nowadays can pick up sound way better than any little mic we had 20 years ago. So, I mean, students today have so much more technology and ability to record themselves on a daily basis and say, am I improving? Here's my recording I made three weeks ago. Here's my recording I made today. Is there improvement in X, Y, and Z elements of my musicianship? And that's where you're constantly striving. And as Commander Corbliss said, it's being humble. It's having the humility to take that feedback from the tape or from whoever. If you've got a great teacher and saying, well, I think I'm doing just fine. I don't need your advice. No, I need your advice. I need you to tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can fix this, because I do want to get better. And if you've got that mentality in everything you're approaching music, I mean, man, you're going to go farther faster than most people, because you're going to be willing to take it and apply it and get better. So, yeah.
That's great. Just a quick question that we have on our Facebook page in the streaming. Does the Navy prefer more of an orchestral sound or a solo sound?
I would say, for me, again, based on our list, a lot of it is big orchestral stuff. We'll have lots of low horn excerpts. We'll have lots of high horn excerpts. We're looking for a section sound, somebody who sounds like we can blend. And as the commander said rightly, we bring players. We bring our players back to play, and that's what we're listening for. You've passed through those rounds, And you've shown you've got great time, great sound. You've got a great understanding of the pieces. Now, can you actually sit down and play a duet, play a trio, and how do you blend with the rest of our guys and the sound? So I would say most of the time it is kind of more of an orchestral sound because we need you to blend. We need you to fill out and be a section player, not somebody who you're going to have those opportunities to solo. All of my players do in the horn section, but that's not really what we're necessarily looking for. We're looking for the blend. So
I have to say, like Dakota mentioned earlier, the crossing over or doing different jobs in the Navy band is very rare. So, I mean, people from the concert band do go down and play with the Commodores occasionally, and because they have to, right? They need it, and that's pretty cool. But in the fleet, we need you to do everything. We love that dark sound when you're in the wind ensemble, but we need a commercial sound because you could be in the rock band. We generally don't put together full big bands anymore, but I can tell you, New Orleans, and not really traditional New Orleans, but young bloods on up, brass bands are our working horse these days. They're unpluggable, they are very entertaining, and we can put them anywhere. So brass band, rock band, concert band. Ceremonial band and concert band are pretty much the same thing. I need that sound. Just like Jason said, I need that sound, and section sound as well. I don't want you to knock the band over with your sound. I want it to blend. But it's a little bit different in the fleet. We pretty much have to go from nice orchestral to commercial with the flip of a switch. But it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, just a very quick thing that you guys mentioned. You're talking about orchestral sound, solo sound, commercial sound. Always sound. So it's like having that tone that you're talking about, having the style. It's like, hey, that sounds. I really like what you're trying to do there with your sound. But it's being able to actually, fit and transfer and change and really blend into the style. Blend doesn't necessarily mean, okay, this is symphonic or orchestral. Right. Blend is being the right sound in whatever group and ensemble you're playing for.
And it's not necessarily changing out your mouthpiece.
What?
It's not? It's not? Yeah, really?
No, just find one and don't get that.
Derek is entering the call. I wanted to talk a little bit about, how you progress through the Navy in the fleet bands in terms of rank and what that might entail. Say that I graduated with a master's in wind conducting. I'm a solid French horn player, so I want to join the Navy, but I really want to get to a point where I'm conducting one of these bands. Dad, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that process and the time it takes and some of the responsibilities that come with being from jumping over from the enlisted to the officer ranks.
Sure, and there was a couple of questions you asked that I haven't answered yet, so I don't want to forget. So there's a couple of things about joining the Navy right now. One is that you have full medical coverage for you and your family, dental coverage. The musician community in the Navy is one of the only communities left that still have a student loan repayment program. That is huge. It is up to $65,000. That's quite an incentive. So basically one tour in the Navy and you have your loans paid off, unless you've been in school forever. I mean, Dakota's like that.
What?
So a huge bonus for musicians to come in and have their loans paid off. So the average starting salary for an E3, which you won't be for very long, is $47,000 a year. And then that's that you get a housing allowance to live in certain areas. Like if you're in California, your housing allowance is very high. If you're in Tennessee, it's not that high because it doesn't cost that much to live in Tennessee. So there's that. So in the Navy, all of the conductors, which would be band officers, commissioned band officers, were formerly enlisted. We are called limited duty officers, and so we start our careers where everybody else starts, except for the guys in D.C., which we have definitely commissioned people out of D.C., but we started as E3s at boot camp, and you work your way up to the ranks. And right now, they've lowered the time in service requirement to apply for LDO. So generally, most of our candidates are first class petty officers, which so you start as E3, you go through E4 and E5, and then when you're in E6, you can apply for LDO to come over to the officer side. Now, all along the way, we have knowledge rating exams twice a year. And so those are a little stressful, and it'll be more studying than you've ever done for material. I mean, you may have studied a lot in college for certain tests. You need to really start studying for these exams like 2 months before the exam. It's insane. Why is it insane, you ask? Why do we have to test? Because nobody quits this job. That's the thing. It's a great job. So everybody wants to make rank in order to keep their job. Because if you don't make first class petty officer, as I said earlier, you cannot stay in for 22 years. You cannot retire from the Navy unless you make first class petty officer. So these tests are pretty hard, and they're hard for a reason, because people don't quit this job. They get in and realize what a great job, so they keep going. So you take these tests, and hopefully you do well after 3, 4, 6 tests, and you get promoted. And then you get to E6, you put in a package, go through a fairly rigorous screening process, some interview boards, and then you go to, your whole package gets judged by some guys in Millington, which I've been on the boards, very interesting. And they look at everything you've done up to now. And leadership is huge, just like any other part of the Navy. Leadership. And so then you get chosen, hopefully, and then you do some accession level jobs. That's what we call them. So some of them are desk jobs, some of them are assistant director jobs, and then you move. Hopefully you survive and you move through the bands, and you get to bigger and bigger bands. And the whole time, we encourage you to continue to hone your craft as a conductor. And honestly, we have put a pretty hard and fast requirement on anybody that would like to be the conductor of the Navy band has to have their master's in wind conducting. And so we allow you to leave the band program and go to North Texas, or we go to Illinois or in Northwestern, and you get your master's in wind conducting from a very good program. And then you come back. And guess what? If you don't make the conductor of the Navy band, the beauty is that the fleet bands just get better conductors out of this. And it is a fantastic system. And I have a great deal of enthusiasm for our young wardroom coming up. And the people in DC should also have enthusiasm, because, man, they're going to get some great conductors over the next couple of years. So that's how you do it. And I've been at it for 30 years. And okay.
Can you also, I know we were talking about some of the other benefits. Is the GI Bill still intact for passing on to family members and dependents?
Oh, yeah. It's a post 9/11 GI Bill, best thing that ever happened to me anyway. So basically, it is 3 solid years of college paid for. And not only that, you get a housing allowance as if you were in the Navy. And if the service member doesn't use it, for now, I mean, things change. If the service member doesn't use it, he can actually pass it on to his dependents. And so I have 6 kids. They all have 1/6 of my GI Bill. Cody got a little more. I don't know why.
What?
But
he must have stolen it
but
out.
That's an awesome program. I would also say medically, I just can't say enough about what happened to me and my wife when our triplets were born. They were very tiny, and they had to be in a neonatal intensive care unit, and the Navy paid for all of it. And I can tell you, I won't tell you exactly what it was, but in my current pay grade, I would not make that much in 3 years. And I was an E7 at the time. It would have been devastating for us had we not had the TRICARE insurance. It is an amazing benefit. So I'm telling you, man, if you can do it, because you're going to play every day, which is the exact phrase that my friend told me when I asked him about his career in the Army. He's like, I play every day. And I was like, that sounds pretty good. And you can still play outside. And Jason will attest, even in DC. You got a gig outside, you can do it. You just have to know that the Navy comes first and always have a sub ready. But yeah, you can absolutely do what you were doing, before or whatever. You just have to make sure that the Navy is your first priority. That it is a fantastic job.
Well, I mean, I think as far as I know, I feel like you guys have given us the Navy music program in pretty successfully in a nutshell in about an hour. Jason, maybe if you want to talk maybe a little bit about what my dad was just talking about some of the stuff that's about the opportunities that you still get to kind of balance outside of the Navy band, and how that works necessarily. So, for example, like you were going to be our horn artist this summer. And so maybe you could talk about the process and making sure you get clearance on that. I think you might have been on brick leave, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that as well, when the dates were going to happen. But maybe just walk us through what that's like.
Sure. Well, yeah, like you said, you can definitely do most any outside job. For you guys, yeah, it fell right within what we call block leave. So right after July 4th, we usually are playing. Either we're playing downtown for the big fireworks, or we're playing somewhere else. But we're definitely playing a show. The band will usually take 2 weeks where you can take leave, as long as we have enough people left to create a band for Arlington, for anything that Arlington National Cemetery needs. But so your dates fell perfectly within that. And I could have done. We were going to do that this year, obviously. But like right now, we've got a guy in my section. He's third horn of the Annapolis Symphony. So again, as long as he can find somebody to cover his ceremonies, or even just take leave during the weeks that the Annapolis Symphony is playing, he can totally play that job. But if something were to happen, let's say, heaven forbid, let's say right now, say Jimmy Carter passes away, well then everything would change, because we would be needed for all the state funeral activities. So if he was playing Annapolis that week, he would have to have his sub ready to go at a heartbeat and say, I can't do it, and Navy comes first. But I mean, yeah, there are guys and ladies in our band who are playing all over the area all the time. One of our trombone players has created a whole separate large brass ensemble, Barclay Brass, and they do concerts, all military band guys from the Army band, Marine band, Air Force, and they play shows all over the area because they can work out the times and dates to rehearse and perform. So it is very amazingly flexible in that regard. And on the other hand, like right now, for me, I have one teenage daughter and one soon-to-be teenage daughter. So like being able to have the flexibility to run them around to all of their activities is super helpful for me right now. It's not gigging. It's being able to get home, help my wife out with what she needs, because she's a full-time elementary school teacher. So, to be able to have that flexibility too has been fantastic. And the band provides those opportunities, as well.
Dad, I know you wanted to do a little plug for the Marine contingent at the School of Music.
Before I do that, I would like to just throw this up there for a screenshot. This is the contact at Fleet Band Activities. Excellent. I worked with this young man. He's really on top of things. So if you have any questions, you can call them there at this number and talk to MU1 Chris Paston. Now, some of you people, I know that there's some, I've been at Fred Brass, and there's some youngsters, some pretty young people. And if you feel like you really are interested in a career in the military and you want to be a musician, the Marine program, we train the Marines here as well. And I would say that that the age differential is pretty substantial, and that the Marines are generally young. I ask every Marine when we check them in, what's your deal? What's your background? Probably 85% of them are high school graduates. So and I will only say that with Marines, unlike Navy, the Navy does not do any other jobs. So at no point in the Navy, as a musician, will somebody say, please drive this ship for me while I go to the bathroom. It's not going to happen. But Marines are riflemen first, but the possibility of you having to use your rifle instead of your instrument is pretty slim, but it's there. So you will be trained as a rifleman in boot camp, just like everybody else, just like we're trained as sailors as boot camp, how to put out a fire. So if you are interested at all in the Marine program, just go to marine.com and then just start clicking around till you figure out how to become a Marine, and you'll get to musician, and then you'll go through a recruiter there, and they will love to see you, because musicians are special recruits for them. They get extra bonus. So if you think you can do it, then by all means do it. The Marine gig is just as cool. You're covered. You're playing your instrument. You're serving your country while doing what you love, and that is an awesome, awesome thing. And the Marine uniforms are completely badass.
Buddy, are there any remaining questions or comments on the Facebook posts?
We got a couple of questions sent to our Facebook page when we posted that this was going to be our broadcast for today, but we kind of have covered them, but I'll ask both of them just so that way that it's safe and it's been cleared, and you're welcome. And then if you guys just have any other tidbits in this, yeah.
If I could answer the first question, yes, Derek Anand is a much better trumpet player.
Don't take that, buddy. Don't take it, man. Don't take it.
Check.
All right.
Okay. We're actually out of questions and out of time. I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to end this short. So the questions. It's funny because I know it's not true. So the first question is. Both of you have been involved not just in your auditions for the program, but have also been on the panels for a lot of auditions too. So your favorite and least favorite things to hear in an audition when listening to a potential colleague?
I think for us, and this goes for every section that it seems like when you walk away from an audition, somebody who comes in and spends like 5 minutes warming up or doing some crazy routine, like, don't do that. Come in, play a note, get used to the room, and then sit down and wow our socks off with your amazing musicianship. That's what we want to hear, We'd rather hear, that's what we want, right? And I'd like to say, again, just to dispel any myths, missed notes they're okay. Like, people are going to miss notes in an audition. We don't want to have 90% missed notes, but right. But we're looking for that musician who's got incredible phrasing, incredible sound, all those things we talked about earlier, right? And so you're going to cack. If you're not cacking, sometimes, as my teachers say, you're really not going for it. So, those things can be dismissed, but come wow us with your amazing musicianship, not your warm-up routine at the beginning of your, audition.
I would have to say, from a DC perspective, one of the things that really struck me, and it just stood out, because when you talk about the DC auditions, you're really talking about some very fine lines of fine gradations of talent there. It's really hard to hear that guy might not make it. But when you are given section work, if you make it that far, you have different roles depending on the part you play. So if you are the lead, if you are playing the first part, then the section will adjust to you. But if you're third, would you please adjust to the section? The lead guy has the thing, So don't go at both positions with the same attitude, because if you are rigid in your intonation and this and this and this, you're not lowering your thirds, you're not doing this, then no, you're done, man, because you got to be in the section. So that would probably be one of my pet peeves, when they get into the section that they don't adjust to their role in a section.
One mouthpiece and good intonation, that's a tall order. Okay. I'll take note. Great, thank you.
Also, message Derek on that too as well.
And then the other question, this broadcast being about the career as a Navy musician, and you've already talked about it, the role as a horn player, and then, starting in horn and then changing roles and now doing much higher in the conducting part. But I guess the question being, what does maybe a journey look like from beginning to later on, as far as you've talked about, like your ranks go up, and then that's like a salary boost as well, but then maybe not just what getting into the Navy would be like, but what a life in the Navy might transition into.
Oh, you mean after, as a Navy musician?
Yeah, well, actually not transition to like after you like retire, but I guess like throughout, like what are like the changes that occur?
I think Jason's answer will be simpler, so I'll let him go first.
Go ahead. Oh, you want me to go first? Oh, yeah. Mine is very simple. Like, because we don't move and we're a permanent duty station, like, I will do my job the same that I will do it for, Lord willing, 30 years if that's what I can get to. But yeah, I mean, you come in. Probably so. Hopefully, you come in and you're number one again. And the band and the captain will tell you all the time, maintaining your musicianship is the number one priority, right? So my hope is, again, I'm playing the same, and if not better, hopefully better throughout my entire career. But I'm day in, I'm day out coming in. I'm playing my horn. I'm doing the things that I need to do, and then if I'm doing those things, I will get promoted from, as we say, coming in as an E6 first class petty officer to the hopes of going all the way to E9, which is Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, and then doing your full year. We just like a week ago had one of our trombonists who did that. He's 30 years. He's a Master Chief. He is a great trombone player, but he's also been one of our enlisted conductors for the entire time, and now he's doing conducting at one of the local universities as his retirement job. So I mean, it's a great gig. But then again, that's going to be very different than obviously the path that Commander Corbliss took.
So in the fleet, yes, I can tell you that Captain Collins, who is the head of all Navy music, is very, very, very emphatic about your instrument. We want our leaders to be players and our players to be leaders. But in the Navy, out in the fleet, we have these very different, varied missions. So in Italy, it's very possible that you will take a small group and go into Africa for a rotation of, say, 3, 4, or 5 weeks. And when you start to move up in rank, you become what we call a leading petty officer, same as Jason. You run the group. It's your group. So you are putting your group on a plane, going into the wilds of Africa and managing all the logistics and security, which is huge, anti-terrorism, force protection. And that is part of how you keep going up. Once you become a first class petty officer, we kind of want to see that leadership in you. In Hawaii, Pacific Partnership deploys 3 months, 4 months at a time. You are on a ship, and you better learn how to behave on a ship. But you could be the LPO of that group, and you are responsible for all those people. So as it goes, the higher up you go, the more responsibility you get, and I'll be looking forward to a time when I'm not responsible for anybody but myself. It'll be great. But yeah, that's how it rolls. I mean, the more you do, and the more you prove yourself to be trustworthy, and it's the same as any career. If I can trust you to do it, and I let you do it, and you do it well, then I will trust you to do more. And there are some very, very important missions out there that we support, that we need trustworthy, somewhat senior sailors to take our groups out. And I can tell you that the Navy music, the job is to let everybody know, is to make everybody feel good about the United States Navy. No matter what is going on in their country, no matter what we've done, you are going to feel good about the United States Navy once you hear one of our bands. And you can't say that. If you pull at a giant ship and people are scared, people don't feel great about that. But you pull in with a band and the band starts playing the music of that country, there's no better diplomatic tool than music. People understand it. I don't need to speak your language. I just need to play your song and do well there. And I can tell you, it has been an immeasurably effective tool for the entire life of our program.
Well, I think that was a really great way to kind of wrap up our session here. Now, here on our Bevo broadcasts, there is something that we do at the end of all our broadcasts, and basically what we need is your best mouth trumpet impression. If you don't know what that is, I'm happy to demonstrate for you, and Buddy will obviously as well. So this is what we're going for here.
That was a pretty good one.
Oh, thank you.
That was pretty good.
Yes, all right, Buddy. Let's see what you got here. Excellent. Yes, Commander Corbliss.
Hold on, when do we get a new mouthpiece?
Excellent. Well done. Well done. That is a new stretch into the sound. Yes, and then Chief Musician Jason Ayoub. Excellent. Yes, that is what happens
both
a lot of the
at
time.
the end, I have to say. That was a nice touch. Little Jason Mraz, little whatever.
Now more than ever, we should bring up the point that was mentioned earlier that it's important to find a teacher and start taking lessons.
Can we do some Zoom lessons, buddy?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on our episode 2 of the Biva broadcast. We really appreciate it, and I think that you guys have provided a lot of great insight in the possibilities as a Navy musician and the benefits that it can reap. We want to just say thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us here this morning.
It was my
Thank
pleasure.
you for
It was
having
our
us.
pleasure to be here. Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, tomorrow is our first Biva premiere. So stay tuned on both of our Fredericksburg Brass Institute and Tidewater Brass Facebook pages to see what we have in store. We got a really rockin' tune coming at you, and that'll be posted at 12 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. So until then, we will see you later. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Commander Mark Corbliss and Chief Musician Jason Ayoub for joining us on Episode 2 of Biva Broadcasts. If you want more information on joining the Navy as a musician, please visit navy.com/careers/Navy-musician. If you would like your product or school to be featured on our broadcasts, please reach out to me, Dakota Corbliss, Director of Operations at dakota@fredbrass.com, and we'll be sure to set it up. Thank you all for listening, and see you next time.